So let's get into the frequency fence. So every single one of us, I hope by now, knows that everything is energy. It doesn't, no matter where you are, you cannot escape it. Everything is energy, whether it is manifest or non-manifest, antimatter or matter. So what we need to understand is if you're going to harness something, especially our brains, our consciousness, our thoughts, they're all done in waves, brain waves, which are affected by frequencies. Okay? So what we need to understand is information, knowledge, lack of knowledge, what you receive as information through your five senses creates a frequency of coming into your mind, which you begin thinking thoughts on the same frequency as the information that comes into your mind. So if you're constantly receiving information from your external world through your senses that are in a low vibration, low frequency, your brain is going to match those and operate from that same state. So this is how you start the frequency fence, the way of harnessing humanity's collective consciousness and staying in one frequency band, one spectrum of light. Do you guys get that? Now, to start off, I really want to say, like, some of the evidence I shared the other day in the Reels and the book that I advised you to go see, and also John's channel. These are just some things that some of you who may not know much about what I'm talking about can go get more proof, because a lot of humans have been conditioned to believe that you can't believe anything that's invisible or something that doesn't have a degree attached behind their name. One of the things I encourage all of you who are searching for truth is that is not how you find the truth, not normally. Most of things that are in the system, backed up by degrees, backed up by that knowledge, has half truth, if anything, mostly misinformation. So you need to understand the truth is what you're going to get from your own higher self and from people like myself that are going to show up like this, share things that don't even come close to what the narrative is, and take the hits from everybody, because this is what we're here to do. So for all of you who are going to follow your purpose and lead from your heart, you have to understand, I want to give this, you're going to have to walk along a path where the most don't follow. You've got to be able to stand tall in your divinity and divineness and be able to hold everything that comes with it, because that's how powerful you are. Having our DNA played with as well, having a lot of it shut off, right, which is what we are told is junk DNA. This was also done as well through the grids in our planet. When you affect the planet's morphogenic field, you affect everything on the planet's morphogenic field. So this is where our own DNA was affected, as well as the morphogenic field of our planet. So these two combinations created a perfect environment to harness the consciousness of everything on our planet, on Earth. So when you are being fed through the system, which is all information, then we operate from that frequency. So this is how the frequency fence was put in place. It's through the media. It's through your educational system. It's through your peers. It's through everything that you receive through information, music, right? Radio, TV, your education. So some of you might have heard of the 100 monkey effect, or you've heard of like critical mass I talked about in my previous reels. When you want to control the collective, you don't have to control every single human in the collective to do so. Understanding how quantum entanglement works and how we're all connected, you get a certain amount of human beings thinking in a certain way at a low frequency, let's say, then it actually flips over and affects the whole. So what a few can think about can actually get the collective to continue to do so by default. You automatically just start to feel and think and behave in the same frequency, at the same frequency level. So this is why watching the same things every day, seeing the environment that you're in, talking to your friends, everybody's operating at the exact same thing. They're saying all the same things. They're behaving all the same way. And this is why when you study people who are extremely successful or have broke free from this frequency fence, they have taken themselves out of the environment. They have put themselves around people who no longer live from that frequency, who have escaped it. They have risen above it, and they think from a higher frequency, a higher thought process. And they live that way as well. So when you've heard people in the business books or in the personal development books where they say, listen, put yourself around people who have what it is that you desire. There's so much behind the words. It's always about the frequency. Who you're around is who you're going to become. You're going to pick up on those thoughts. You're going to pick up on those ideas. You surround yourself with people who are all thinking low thoughts. They're afraid to move. They just don't want to do anything. They just live a mediocre life. To break free from that is even more difficult. So put yourself around people who know more than you, who have what you want, and elevate your consciousness, and you'll see a whole new reality open up for you. It's a great example is you've all heard when, let's say, nurses, they're all working the same shifts, and 4 or 5 weeks later, their cycles all start to match. They all start to vibe on the same frequency. Nobody seems to question that. They just think it's, oh, well, it's just some weird thing that happens. It's frequency. And everything is important around frequency. Your brain, your consciousness, your body, everything is frequency. So in order for you to have something that you desire, for you to have more money, to have health, to find your soulmate, you don't seek it out in the external world of trying to find answers. You go within yourself and you start to change your own frequency, which starts where you think, what you think. So change your environment will change your outer environment. You all have to understand that. You will never change your outer environment if you're in the outer environment trying to change it. I say this so many times. This is why your life seems hard when you're trying to create a certain level of success in your business, or you're trying to change something desperately in your external world, but you're ignoring your internal world completely. You're thinking from the same thinking. You're thinking from lack and fear and scarcity, and yet you're trying to make a quantum leap into something that's more prosperous, something that is more. If you want something more, that's heading towards abundance. That's prosperity. You got to change your thoughts to prosperity and abundance, or you're not going to match it. So for them to do the research for decades on how human beings think, consciousness, telepathy, intuition, clairvoyance, right? Remote viewing, and actually use it. There are projects like this the CIA had to release that if you Google, you'll find. If they're so interested in the invisible power of what you have access to and what you're capable of, this is why they've got humans under a frequency fence, because they're controlling your consciousness. You think you have free will, but you don't, because you're being directed unconsciously how to behave. Because when you look at a collective of humanity living in mediocrity, in a life that's not really exciting or inspiring, it's just Groundhog Day, it's just living, and you see that most of people are going backwards, meaning their diseased bodies are starting to accelerate. Their income, they can't pay for groceries, they can't pay for food. You're living in lack. You're living in absolute scarcity. This is how they've created the world, but we're the ones creating it. They're using our brains, our consciousness, and our thoughts to create reality because we are creators. So the first step is understanding that you are co-creating with the divine, and we are being used and harnessed with our minds to create a reality that was never meant to be created. Abundance is our birthright. If we're creating lack, if we're creating poverty, we are absolutely out of alignment with God, with our source, with our true self. And this was done purposely. So to bring that back, for you to live a life that you were meant to live, which is abundance, prosperity, all of the beautiful things that nature gives you, you need to start to think on your own and not be told how to think by what you're given in your external world. Because unconsciously, you are all following that lead. Humanity's been under a microscope for a very long time. And they're investigating not the physical body, your energy body, your consciousness, your soul, because you're just a physical expression here, which is a hologram. If you understood the truth of where you are, you do not reside here. And that's why you can change anything you want in the physical world, because it changes first in the invisible. But they have harnessed all of you to believe in only one realm, your physical world. And the best way to keep you completely focused with your intentions and your attention is through the survival mode, which is stress. Human beings are living in fear every single moment of every single day. When your body is in that survival mode, you are not creative. You are easily persuaded and controlled. And if most of humanity live in that every day, how are you ever going to be able to get out of it? You're going to continue to feed into their garbage. You are not a flaw. You are not a mistake. You are powerful, and you are more powerful than these entities that are controlling our world. They're using quantum computers. They're trying to create what God's already created, and it's in you. So if they're creating quantum computers, that means they're associating and acknowledging there are quantum fields, quantum energy. And yet most of humanity won't even open their minds to the fact that there's anything outside of the physical world. You are a quantum being. You have multiple selves in multiple dimensions, and they know that. And to harness a quantum computer, they're using DNA. So everything that these fallen races are using, These AI technology is a copy of what God has already created. So to convince humanity to think you're flawed and to want you to take on this AI technology that will help you live longer, you all are already eternal. You all are already infinite. But you have forgotten this. This is going to ruffle some feathers, but I think a lot of people are aware of this. When you look at the president now in the U.S., people seem to think that he's going to be your savior, because most humanity is a victim. So they're looking for saviors because they don't believe of the power that they have within themselves. Well, anybody in the U.S. right now that's in any control is part of the dark agendas. There are a couple different races here competing against one another. And just because one left and one came in doesn't mean this one is not going to cause a lot of problems to put humanity underneath that prison. So if you pay attention to what this president has recently said and some of the people that he's bringing into his office, they're all about injecting more stuff into your body to prevent certain diseases. The way they're marketing this is just ridiculous. Yes, if you take this particular injection, it's going to alter your DNA, but it's going to help you not have any more diseases. The diseases are created, my friends, by your environment. And if you believe anything of what they tell you, you will create the disease in your body. You do not need any more injections in your body or DNA alterations. You are given a DNA blueprint, which is divine. It's called the Christos Code. It is the Christ consciousness DNA blueprint. And they're trying to alter it by giving you all these excuses of, if you take this, we can make sure that you don't die from this particular disease. And because humanity lives in fear, they just don't think, and they go, okay, I'll take it. So to give you a proof that what's going on right now is not done by the divine or God, it's done by these fallen races. I don't recall ever having anyone ask us our permission in terms of, can you terraform our earth? I don't recall getting permission. I think we were forced, most of us, to take certain things into our body if we wanted to eat, if we wanted to work, if we wanted to have an income. Do you think this is something that's divine and for the greater good of humanity, or is this tyranny? Is this dystopian? This is control. This is absolute control. Humanity is being forced, threatened to put this in their body. This is not a divine thing. This is not natural evolution, and this is not the way we are supposed to evolve into. So take a look at how all of this is going out. Who elected the WEF and the UN? Nobody. But they're the one controlling the masses. Billions of human beings are being controlled by them, and no one even elected them. Is that something that's done through authenticity or done through law properly? No, this is all done anti-Christ, anti-God, anti-human. So pay attention to what's going on around you and the tyranny and the forcing and the threats and the lies. And you have to understand that this is not something that's for the greater good of humanity at all. This is to take you out of being human permanently. They keep telling you, they're boasting about it. There will not be one organic human left by 2030. If this doesn't bother you, that's fine. But for some of you who want to stay connected to the source, the real God, your divinity, you need to understand this and keep yourself pure. So as they're pushing their agenda towards this total control frequency fence, this electrical connection of humans to the cloud, does that even sound organic or normal to you? Like it's technocratic. It's ridiculous. And so to not be able to move anywhere in the world because they want to monitor everything from your inside your body and out, does that sound divine? And what's interesting is if you understood who you truly were, God is closer than your breath, meaning God knows everything you do. God hears every thought you have. God surrounds you. God permeates everything. They are always trying to mimic, create false technology that will do the same as what God has already created. So they're invading your bodies. They're wanting to know everything you think, everything you do. They're trying to be creator gods. We've heard this before. But this is the biggest step they've ever made because they do not want you to think any thoughts outside of the thoughts they want to give you so they can harness your consciousness and keep you really low. Alter your DNA with more of these so-called injections that they say are going to keep you from diseases that they're creating and keeping you in so much fear. So how you get out of this is when you really start to understand who you are and you stop living your life in fear. And this is extremely, extremely easy to do when you start to get outside of their frequency. And how you do that is by ignoring the outside world and start making time for yourself in your imagination. Like I told you, the fourth dimension access is your imagination. And this is where you create an environment that is conducive to you, that makes you happy, that brings joy to you. And as you stay in that environment long enough, you start to elevate your own frequency. I want to give an example here I'm sure a lot of you can relate to so you understand what I mean. That when you keep your frequency, you skip it onto a higher level, you start to think differently. You become a different person. And so when you're locked and loaded into this identity that you've been for generations and generations, passed on through your cellular memory, this is normal to you. This is something that just seems normal to live your life this way. And when people bring in new information, it feels awkward. It doesn't feel normal. And this is why most times people reject it. But the things that don't feel normal, the things that do feel awkward, are the exact thing that's going to take you outside the frequency fence. The reason why they don't feel good is because it's a higher frequency. The information that you're getting that will expand your consciousness, that will take you to the goals, to the desires that you desire, they are found on a higher frequency. So a frequency that's high and a frequency that's low is going to cause a distortion in the field. It's going to feel awkward. It's not going to feel natural. But if you understood yourself and you knew this was the process, then you would keep going. But humans feel that awkwardness. This doesn't feel natural, so it must be bad. And what do? They go back to being the way they always were. This is what you need to understand. This is the knowledge that's missing. The awkwardness is because that is your higher frequency. Your desire is right there. You need to accept it and start to live from that. So how many of you have had a perception that something is supposed to be this way and this way only? You spent most of your life believing this. And then all of a sudden, a friend or someone proved you wrong. They gave you some kind of evidence or they proved you wrong, that your belief that was natural, that was normal to you, that you took on and accepted, that limited you to where you are, someone else proved that belief wrong and you opened up your whole entire mind to a new idea. This is what I'm trying to get to you. When you're locked into a certain frequency, you do not know what you do not know. You can't understand anything outside of that frequency, so you believe and stay stuck in it. But when somebody or something asks you or elevates you outside of that frequency, this is why near-death experiences or people that get to that low point in their life where they're just on the brink of giving up, this is when they experience higher frequencies and they start to realize there's more to life than what you think. Now, it's a shame that we have to get to that place. But if you can understand that if you just flipped yourself onto a higher frequency through unplugging from the stories and the system and allow your true self to finally move through you, you'll see a whole new world. You'll have a whole new idea of what reality can be, and you'll start to live from that place, and you exit the frequency fence like that. It is not hard to leave it. It's mental. You need to think differently. How many of you ever heard of circumstances controlling humans? It's something that we learn, in personal development. You learn through just personal growth. It's something that is backwards. So when a human being lives from the outside in, they're living from the conditions, the circumstances, their bank account, what their friends say, what the system says, what their parents say. They're not living their truth. They're not living an authentic life. They're living a fake life. They're creating an identity based on what the external world tells them they are. This was the biggest mistake, but it was actually conditioned purposely to do so. Every one of you came here with an identity, a soul purpose to play out here because it elevates the frequency on the planet. Every single one of you, your soul purpose leads you into higher and higher and higher vibrational frequencies as you move through it. But when most of humanity do not pay attention to their soul purpose, they live a life that they don't love, they live a life that they don't really find inspirational or exciting or creative, then you're going to keep yourself under that fence. We don't live from the outside in. It's a hologram out there. You have to start to understand you're creating it through your mind, your consciousness. The hologram shifts when you do, not you in the physical world, you in the invisible world, the mental world, the quantum world. And there is a quantum world. That's why they're trying to make quantum computers, and that's why they've been studying your quantum self for centuries. So start to acknowledge you have one and start to live from that self, because that self is infinite. It's not limited. The human's limited, and we live from limitation if we're going to live by the external world, because that's where the physical human lives, in the external world. But your soul, your infinite self, is not locked down to any world. It's infinite. So listen to that self and see what happens with your reality. We all know we're in an inverted system. Everything that we do, all the information that we've always received, is opposite of our natural beingness, right? So when I say to you, don't live from the external world. Don't believe and live from all those things unless you feel in your body and in your heart, that it's right. And all of you know the difference between how you feel. You know if this feels right, or you know, this doesn't feel right if you pay attention. The distractions, the video games, the Netflix, this is all done so that you do not connect to your higher self. Connect to your higher self. Connect to your higher self if you want to live a completely different reality now, not in the future, because there is no future. There is only now. Time, everything happens in the moment. So you need to live from the inside out. The inside is mental. The universe is mental. That is one of the Hermetic laws. The universe is mental. What is that? It means you need to use your mind, your mental mind, your thoughts, your imagination. And you create pictures there. And then those pictures start to show up in your external world. This is exactly what you're doing now that's creating that chaos, because you're living with the pictures from the external world. And then you create them in your mental, in your mind, and then they project out there as your reality. That's what they did. They've harnessed your perception. So take your perception off the external world and stay within. And lastly, I want to share something. This is how we miss things. Opportunity for us to have whatever we desire is all around us right now. It's in wave form. The quantum field, the etheric field, whatever you want to call it. And I share in all my reels, all my videos, I always share how to escape the frequency fence. I always say, listen, raise your consciousness, raise your frequency, unplug from the external world, and live from your heart, live from your soul purpose. Align with that entity, that identity, because that's your true self. And your whole reality will change. You will access the power that you haven't been using as a human. And I get people come into my DMs and like, well, you didn't tell us what to do. You didn't tell us how to raise our frequency. You didn't tell us how to get out of this. But I did. But see, when you're locked into a certain frequency, this is very important. You will only hear what you're in a resonance with. My information's on a higher frequency. I'm trying to get you to think outside of that box. And if you don't harness your thoughts and pay attention, you're not going to hear me. You're not going to hear it because you're not in resonance with that frequency. So this is what I'm saying. When you raise your frequency, what you see, what circumstances change, the opportunities that are available for you are already there waiting for you. But you will never see them if you stay at the same frequency that you're operating at day in, day out, every day, all day long, year in, year out. You cannot do that. So change your thoughts, your ideas, inspiration, innovate, create, start to live from your inside. You're always being guided. It's called intuition. Start listening to it and lead from your intuition. It will never, ever, ever steer you wrong. And you're going to have the life that you desire if you choose to do that. It's all about frequency.